Okay, and we're live. Nothing to it.
Figuring this out. All right. There's one. Okay, let's begin. Maybe we should start with a little bit about you, because everybody knows about me.
Okay, that's fair enough. My name is Andrew, and I live in Colorado. I met Andrea at a meetup group earlier this year and met there a number of times before you moved out of town.
Yes.
I sort of do IT work in my day life and spend a lot of my after hours and evening time in contemplation, meditation, spiritual seeking with good friends of mine and things of that nature.
And you're going to be the host today.
I'm going to be the host today and producer. I'm going to help make sure that we stay on track and on time.
All right. So we're live on Facebook and YouTube. And those on the Zoom call, you guys can raise your hand, and actually I'll let Andrew describe how all of that will happen, since I kind of know, I know the hand raising, but after that, I don't know.
Yep. As soon as if you raise a hand, then I'll call on you to unmute you, and you can dive in and have a little interaction and Q&A with Andrea. We're going to kind of play it by ear, depending on how many folks have questions and what kind of questions that you have, and then we'll slice and dice maybe some of the meanings and things that come around with them as well. Are you seeing your chat feeds on both your other feeds there?
I don't see it on Facebook. So I still don't see us live on there. But I do see on YouTube.
So if somebody asks a question there, that you would see it there. It does say that you're live on Facebook, though.
Okay. Let's see here. Okay. Let's see here.
Yep, there you are.
Let's see here.
Yep, there you are. Okay, so how about a little bit about you too? If there's anyone on that is not familiar with your work already, how about you can give everyone a refresher?
Yes. So, pretty much going back to my short story of from 5 years old, I heard voices and didn't tell anyone at the time because I was growing up in a dysfunctional home. And from being quiet and experiencing things my whole life, I was in denial. Even though some wonderful things, supernatural things, spiritual things, all these just really interesting things would happen. And I knew I was different, and, kind of left it at that. Because I was growing up in a super dysfunctional home, I got a little abuse of physical, mental, emotional, sexual, and all that other stuff that goes with it. So in my teens, I just became rebellious. And then I got married at 20 and just focused on starting a family. So in 2012, I had a memory recall that just started opening me up. And so when I realized that I was having these abilities, then I went, oh my gosh, what do I do? I was, in corporate, and it was just really weird. So I just started opening up to it. And the more and more I practiced on my friends, and then it just blossomed and bloomed and went really fast. And, I there's so many things I can tap into, whether it's loved ones who's crossed over, or people who are alive, past lives, roads before you, animals, angels, archangels, spirit guides, galactics, too many things to name. So it's really hard to say, hey, this is what's going to happen. So going on a live event is huge, because now it's really unpredictable. So, they're all here. There's a lot of energy for sure. So that's what I do. I just say I channel energy. That really sums up for me the easiest way to kind of make it a free for all, because I really don't know how it's all going to unravel. So that's the questions, that we're going to take, people that have been in session with me before, 5 minutes, or I should say half an hour feels like 5 minutes, and an hour feels like 10 minutes. So it's it'll be interesting to see how we do this.
Very cool. Along those lines, I will ask that the participants, when you're called on, try to be as specific as possible if you have a question for Andrea, because that's going to help her tune into whichever one of those resources that she mentioned before is going to be most helpful for you. We do have a number of people showing up on your Facebook stream now. So if you want to remind those people your website address, which is where the Zoom link is.
Yep. awakeningswithandreadawn.com. And it's under the events. So at the top, just click events and it'll take you immediately down there, and there's the link.
Perfect. Okay. So as we let those people filter in here from one platform over to the other, see that we do have a few people already in. Start to formulate your questions here and see what comes through for Andrea. You mentioned galactics, and I started watching a show on Gaia the other night about galactics, and that was a little bit, it was interesting. I had things that I wanted to ask you, and I was like, oh, it's like midnight or something like that. So that would be the best time to ping you on that. But some things that offline I would definitely like to get a better idea on, because wow, the landscape is quite broad out there, isn't it?
It is. If you would have, even when I started practicing in 2013 is when it really started going. Back then you would have said, hey Andrea, you'll be talking to galactics. I would have been like, yeah, right. When they started showing up, even I was like, oh my gosh, who are you? Like, wait, where are you from? You're very different looking. I can't draw, but if I could draw fast enough them, it would be really cool. There's been some people that have, similar in a book that what I've seen, but I can look at them and go, wow, how come mine is different than even what they have? So, but very, very similar. So I don't know if I just saw different things, but the similarities are uncanny. So it's a little bit confirmation that you're not the only one going, oh my gosh, that's exactly pretty much what I saw. So, even on the other side, I would say the one I saw that was almost identical, mine had hair, and I started laughing. I go, oh, yours was just bald. Mine had hair. That's the only thing I could think of, but that was the only difference. So anyway.
That's pretty interesting.
It was.
They talked a lot about the, not necessarily the politics, but I would say that the sort of, in a way, the political or ideological landscape in our little corner of the galaxy here, and that in and of itself over the the last tens of thousands of years here on Earth is pretty interesting to know the larger story that we're all a part of. And I'm curious to know what what your take on that is, and what you've encountered on that front. You've mentioned a few times before that you've encountered people or beings on kind of either side of the fence, so to speak. So what's some of what you've been able to glean from beings on either side of the so-called divide there, I suppose, which is probably something we could dive into more deep when it comes to positive and negative and that kind of thing. But I'm curious to see what your exposure to those have been.
So, like I've been through Andromeda and visited one planet that was in that galaxy, which was absolutely stunningly beautiful, and flowers that were, probably 5 feet across, and the colors were something that we have never seen here. I mean, we see beautiful things. Our Earth is very beautiful, but these were like alive. The colors were alive, and the water was so still, even though there was this little lap that was coming in, and I just wanted to go and lay in it. I felt like I was going to, if I could, like get life from that water, an abundance of life and breath, and just like overall, my body would have just been fed everything I needed. And of course, I'm not surprised, but I was standing there just taking in the foliage, and and the water was like kind of, at one point it would be like a real soft violet, and then it would be a real soft like teal blue, and then there would be a pink, almost how sometimes the clouds change on our sunsets. That's kind of how this water was changing. And as I was looking out, I'm going, gosh, there's something, coming. And I thought I was alone. And this is me, what you'll learn, because there's always usually something that is funny that happens. And here comes this sort of turtle looking thing. It had a shell, but it wasn't exactly a turtle. The feet were different. The head was different. It was more wide, almost like a hammerhead shark kind of thing. And there was a pug looking dog riding on the back of the shell. And the pug reminded me of the movie Men in Black, because all it did was look over at me and smile, and it had teeth. And I just started cracking up, and then boom, I got pulled out. And I was like, no, you made me laugh. And I got pulled out, and I wanted to stay and explore, this place. But so what I know, the ships that I've been on, the galactics that I've met and talked to, they, they run the gamut. From being a very high vibrational ones to lower ones to being challenged, and then I had the one that looks like, well, I called him a Draco, but I don't the lizard ones or whatever, all the pictures that are out there, but this one was just more reptilian, and I know they call them draconians, but I don't know why I called him a Draco. Obviously, that was just my knowing, because when I looked over at him, I remember saying, aren't you supposed to be one of those negative ones? And he just looked over at me and he goes, just like here on this planet, there's negative and positive energy. And then he showed me that his army behind him, it just looked like an army, but it was just a bunch of other Dracos. And I felt like, and I said, well, your energy feels good to me, so I wasn't afraid, but I just knew that even though he looked like that, he wasn't necessarily a negative being. So it is the same here in all things, right? All occupations, you have negative and positive energies. And so not not people ask me this all the time. Well, how come I can't see him? How come I can't see him? We're just not ready. We're not ready. But, I will tell you, some of them I've seen, I would cross the street and go, you stay on your side, I'll stay on mine. Like, they're just not, their energy is good, but it's still for us, the visual of, wow, that's really interesting. Like, I've seen ships that look very similar to Star Wars or Star Trek or whatever, one of those shows. I can never say which one it is, but it just seems familiar to me. So there's also stars. So, there's inhabitants on the stars and on the planets. Like I've been to Mars and I went inside and I didn't like it. I was all, I don't ever want to come back here. I'm good. I went in the moon and I was like, okay, this is really interesting because we're not alone. And to say who's in there, it's very industrial looking and there's stuff in there, but I'm always drawn to the moon, right? The moon, I love the moon. I love looking at the moon. It has a really high vibrational energy to it. So, and now I feel more than ever, the ships are showing themselves. You can see them in the clouds. You keep staring at one cloud or something, you look over and you're like trying to drive going, why did I keep looking over there? Because you're picking up on energy. So something is there. You might not be able to see it with your naked eye, but you have a knowing that something is there. And that intuition, that knowing is coming more and more and more. So you're picking up on everybody that wants to be aware of it. And some people don't. They're like, I couldn't handle looking at a galactic being knocking on my door. Which is fine. And I think we're coming to this point of having more and more awareness. So, Bob Lazar, I think, he's the first kind of whistleblower to say, hey, we have this technology, had his badge, had all these things back in the 70s. And just last year, they found the Area 64, where he said it was there, but nobody could find it. So we're getting closer.
Interesting. That show did talk a lot about, actually, in one of the episodes, about a lot of the races, that there are, just as you said, reptilians that are on both sides. So there's some that are certainly positive, just same as anywhere you go, right? So I guess it's not surprising that we would have the same sort of stereotypes intergalactically as we would here. We have a question. I'm going to go ahead and call on Elizabeth here. Elizabeth, if you can unmute yourself and say hello.
Hello. Hi, Andrea Andrew.
Hi.
Hi. So I'm new to you, Andrea, and your work. And so I hope this is a question you can answer, because I'm not quite sure how to formulate it, but I thought I would just go ahead and ask.
Okay.
So I am working on building my practice of doing my meditation to connect to my spirit guides. And I'm getting to a point where I feel I clearly have an awareness that they are there and obviously helping me along on my journey. But I haven't yet been able to communicate with them, or maybe get any visuals of them or anything besides this knowing that I know they're there. So I'm wondering if there's maybe a way you can tap into them or myself and see if there's any messages that might help me with that moving forward, or if there's any messages that they might want to give me at this point in time.
So, right away, as soon as you started talking, there is a male, a masculine, energetic being. And I do feel like he has the Native American kind of energy to him. And the reason I'm feeling his energy, but he has just a very small single beaded headband that goes around and just one feather sticking up in the back. It's not elaborate at all compared to some of the other chiefs that I've seen. And I'm not questioning why he's only wearing the one headband. I don't know why he's not wearing a shirt, but he's not. So he's very traditional Native American looking, and I mean, physically to me. Are you doing, in your meditations, are you listening to the drums? Have you listened to the drumming?
I haven't.
Okay,
No.
because he started playing the drum. And so there was a connection between you and him, but the drums in particular. I think it's Stephen Halpern. He has a great drumming meditation. I know I don't know where you can get it, Amazon, or you can try YouTube. I'm not sure, but there's some really good ones on YouTube, and then there's not so good ones. A lot of the times they'll have drumming with the flute. Amazing, just amazing. But you're really connected to that. And he is a very strong masculine energy, which tells me that what you're going through and he's sharing is that you're needing the masculine energy. You need to rise that up in you, right? So we have both, but when we tend to favor one side or the other, then one side will rise up, right? So for men, keeping the feminine energy, balanced and in harmony with women, the masculine. So he's here to help you. And it's about speaking our truth, right? They help when we tap into the masculine, it helps us to speak our truth. We get courage, we get, the action from that masculine energy. So having you tap into that, because this is your guide for right now. Now, the thing about spirit guides that I have been shown is, one, they can change. Not all the time. You can have a lifetime one or not. Whatever you've chosen with your spirit guides, it can be just very, very different. So you can have a male to a female, whatever you are needing, whatever you're calling on, because the whole thing is for you to expand and grow on this journey, just your journey. So everything else is just secondary. Every experience you have is about your growth and your expansion. So when you're calling on your spirit guides, and it's kind of like, we can't put them or God in a box, right? So as you're saying, I want to know my guides, it's what do you want to know about how they're going to help you, right? So most of the time it's just they're always going to confirm what you already know, because you already know everything. It's just we forget when we come out of the womb. We got to start over, but we do know. And so the stronger that you get into your knowing, and the stronger you feel your guides and what you're asking, it's the same thing. It's just the same kind of premise of, Christians going to God, well, I need a new car. Well, that's not what God, it's not what the purpose is. That, it's about you and what you're here on your journey, learning and having this experience to just grow from. So he's encouraging you in your meditations to set aside any expectations. And I feel that you're really good at this, actually, that you're really trying to open yourself up and say, whatever it's going to be, I'm okay with it. Because if we want, we're going to think we have the flowy, beautiful angels come. It's not always that, but it could be. It could be an archangel that shows up. Or sometimes you get it so randomly, you keep seeing a name over and over and over. Let's just use Michael, right? So all of a sudden Michael, and you meet Michaels and blah, blah, blah. And it could be that Archangel Michael is trying to come through. And then you might be hearing Archangel Michael. So it is also being aware of repetitiveness. And, yes, I do believe numbers are always reminding us that, yes, keep going, you're on the right path, or anything that is a trigger that helps us to remember that we're choosing to go on this journey. You're always on your right path, but the journey that you're on is for you and you only, not a partner, not your kids. I'm reminding myself. So it's always just this flow of, okay, next experience. Oh man, did I grow? Did I learn from that one? If I didn't, I always say, bring it on. Let's do this again. Okay. This time I got it. I'm right. I'm going to do this. I mean, we have to have them. We're all humans. We have to have these experiences. There's no good or bad. It just is. It's just what you came here for to have. Did that help answer your question?
Yes, it did, actually. And it's funny because I have been encountering a lot of feathers as I go on my walks. So,
He's got
wow.
one. You must be collecting all the other ones then. Just
Wow,
hold on
thank
to
you.
them. You're welcome.
Thank you.
So that's a great segue, Andrea, to talk a little bit about spirit guides broadly. You talked about them coming forward in relation to what we need to know or what we need in the moment. How have you seen success either for you or with the people that you've worked with in determining what this moment is trying to teach us? Like you said, keep meeting it, right? The moment is here, and the challenge, or what have you, however you describe it, is in front of you. And how would you determine best what is seeking to be learned through that challenge or that circumstance?
I would say first, the number one thing is to not, it's a test for ourselves, is to take away that negative thought about what we think we know and what we think we hear, what we think we, the thoughts. Because when we can take control of the thought, then we can hear, whether it's voices, or it's direction, guidance, awareness from our guides. So my grandfather, my mom's dad, was the one that showed up for me. Actually, when I was 5, he was the one that I saw first. And I saw him as clear as day, standing in the corner. And I never met the man. He transitioned over before I was born. But I don't know if my mom had a picture of him in a naval suit somewhere in the house, but now I know it was a Navy because he was in the Navy, but he was fully in his naval uniform with the cap on, and he was standing there. And when I look back later, I had asked him, I'm like, how did I see you so clear, but you weren't clear? And he said, just like in Star Wars, in one of the Star Wars, back in the 70s, the first, what's her name? Princess, Leia. Yeah. She recorded herself. So that hologram was how he came to me. It looked like a hologram. And I remember talking to him and not being afraid, even though I knew who he was, but I didn't know who he was. So, but then, was he with me? I didn't know at the time until later. He showed me, yes. He showed me that he was with me before I was born, and we had an exchange. He showed me a lot of different things. I think the challenge for us is to, when we hear the voices or we hear the guidance, that we're not crazy. You're not making it up. Your imagination is just an image reflected. So it's still, you're not making it up because it's already out there and you already know. So it's just us being able to absorb and accept that this is not, like, I don't know what his voice sounded like, but when he talks, I can hear his voice. But when loved ones have crossed over, especially, and they're here to help and want to, give us guidance and direction or clarity, you think that you're hearing your mom's voice or your dad. You are. And they're like, yeah, that's what they would say. Then that's what they're saying, because that is what they would say. They still have the same personality on the other side. You're not crazy. You're not making it up. So that is the biggest challenge, is when we get very stuck in routine. It's go to bed, wake up, take your shower, get ready for work, go to work, do your thing at work, get off work, go home, or whatever it is. And so If we're just sitting here in this cycle, then this is our cycle. We have to step out of that cycle in order to be aware to where our guides are, who they are. My grandfather is not around anymore. He did stop, being a guide to me. I had, I had a guy just randomly come to me, and they were both ones that had crossed over, but they were my guides. So they can come as, family members that have transitioned over. Sometimes they'll come as what we call guardian angels, and they pass over so that they could actually be with that particular child or grandchild or whatever. That's the contract. It's not that there's a connection stronger and that they're more loved or favoritism. There's no such thing. It's all energy. So then you're whether it's just random spirit guides, these also could be ones that have crossed over. On the other side, you're still learning. And so sometimes they will not be around their family. The one gentleman that I got was actually told me his name and told me to look him up on the military death index. And he was a staff sergeant, and I looked him up, and it really tripped me out because there was this picture, and I'm like, wow, I'm not making this up. How could I know that one particular man's name? Told me he was from San Antonio. Sure enough, that's what it said. And I'm like, why are you here helping me? And he said, because my family doesn't believe in this. And so even if I go around them, they're completely oblivious. They ignore me. They won't listen. They won't take, any of my love, any of that. And he said, and so I want to learn with you. And so I was like, well, I'm learning. So great. I don't mind the company, and he had some experiences, let me tell you. But I didn't know that guy. And then it became, different beings. And I'm like, are you here for me? Because I don't know what you are, who you are, but I knew that there was a presence that was just around me, and then it would go, whether it be, some of them were months, some were just weeks. So it really is, it's kind of like, it's a big family out there, no matter what being it is or what spirit it is. You have a whole way more than you could ever imagine that want to help humanity expand and grow. And the ultimate goal is love, is to get to this place where we just have love for one another, no matter where we are, what's happening. We love humanity because that's what we have come here to be a part of, is to love one another. No matter what, that's it. No matter what, there's no more. So
that's beautiful. I love that as a target, and certainly a purpose. There is an exercise I learned recently around developing clairaudience, which I think might translate a little bit to perhaps hearing what your guides might have to share with you. And it's using the Om technique. And so it's sort of contrasting. So you do very long Om, for basically as long as you can hold that, and then you stop for about as long as you were Oming for. And that silence is what sort of opens up that gap to allow you to tune in a little bit more. So the Om drawing the focus, and then stopping, and then that creating the space where some more might come through. And then something else that occurred to me too, that you mentioned about having thoughts that you're not sure of, like, oh, is that my thought? Was that somebody else's thought? There's an aspect to truth that is not original, like or it can only be truth. So you can't come up with an original thought independently that is also true. That's you tapping into and allowing truth to come through you. And when you realize something that is true, I think that's very similarly, you're also tapping into something and having something come through that's also part of you, but at a higher level, which all consciousness is effectively one anyway. So it's all unified. And so we're able to tune into or to hear things that are coming from, be it ourselves or our guides, which are different aspects of the same unified consciousness. And so
Right.
when those things come through, I find that really reassuring and really comforting to know that that connection to a higher self, to a higher level of consciousness, is open and opening, more and more all the time.
Oh my gosh, I just forgot his name. He had the best ohm. His voice was super deep. He's an author. Passed away, and I went and saw him in concert, and I cannot remember his name. Anyway, listening to his CDs, because he would do it in a triple kind of effect. Music plays a huge influence on us because it hits these vibrational notes that can help us get into a really good state of relaxation. And that's really what meditation prayer is about, is being in that relaxed state so you can be open and aware of what's coming into you, whether it's verbally, you're hearing it outside of you, or you're hearing it in your head. You're seeing something out of the corner of your eye. You're seeing orbs, whatever, however they come, birds, the feathers. That's their way of getting our attention. And we just forget that, hey, I got to notice this. Oh my gosh, snap out of what you're thinking, get rid of that thought, and notice whatever, nature. Best way to get reconnected, right, is nature. But music and the Om, I love the Om,
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
the sound of the universe.
Yes.
Well, to your point, synchronicities are not coincidences. And you and I chatted a little bit about this recently, that it occurred to me that when I may encounter something right as I'm thinking of something, it's sure sometimes could be that circumstance or that event or that thing that I encountered was called to happen right then. And it's just as likely that the thought itself was fed in at exactly that time when that thing was going to happen anyway. So in other words, whether one was already on track to happen or the other, the point is that they happen at the same time in this perfect way, to let you know that there's something there to take notice of. Have you had interesting experiences with, I'm sure you have, but what are some interesting experiences you've had with synchronicities?
Oh my gosh. Well, everybody hears me say that, and I always say, you can't make this shit up, because it's not shit, but because it flows. It flows so much that, magic and miracles should be every day, all day. The synchronistic opportunities are not, like you said, there is no coincidences, and there's no mistakes, because you're always doing whatever it is you're supposed to be doing. It's a choice. So to think that, that this has happened or that's happened, oh, dang, I shouldn't have done that. No, you already did it the way you were supposed to. That was your learning. I can tell you when I was, here I have the memory recall of the sexual abuse. It started in 2012. I remember the mental, emotional, and physical, and that's all I could handle. And then I remembered, and that just started opening the door to other things. And coming from being a Christian to a spiritual awakening, sitting in the classroom and having, the Reverend talk, and she's, sitting there saying, well, this is what you asked for, this is what you laid out. This was your plan. And I almost wanted to get up and slap the woman and walk out of the room and go, I'm never going back there, but I sat through it and, talked about it with my carpool friend all the way and even more, and went back the next week, and then started realizing, okay, yeah, no, this is part of the journey. The trauma and the pain is part of the journey. It's what I do with it. My past does not define me who I am today. And if I had not had the past that I had, I wouldn't be where I am today. So I think everything that happened, I love everything that happened, even though I would never wish that on anybody. Yet it was mine. That was my life. So I love how I am today but I had to go through that. So I have to love it all. Otherwise, I'm not a whole and complete person. I can only take parts, and that's just not, we're not really set up that way. Although we do compartmentalize, that's what our brain does. But our brain only knows trauma as trauma, whether you're in a traumatic car accident, whether you're sexually abused, the brain doesn't know the difference. It's just trauma. So it's how we emotionally attach to the trauma. We have to detach from that trauma. We have to detach from all of these experiences and say, that's just not who I am today. I am so much more. I love who I am. I love the way my life is. And then boom, door, synchronistic things, and just fun. It's just fun because you can't, it's just like, you can't make it up because it just keeps happening. You're like, man, and my friend Jean says, that just happened. It's like, yeah, that just happened. It's like, that just happened. And then I don't ever want to dismiss the love and fun that I have, but I do always say, well, you can't make this shit up, man. I'm just not that good. I'm not that fast. I can't do that. And yes, that's exactly how it happens. And those are the best stories. Those are the best stories to share with people, because we all should be having those kinds of experiences.
And I think we do, and we will, when we are in the moment, when we're present, when we're right here. This is where it all happens. And it's when we're not attached to our history. We did choose to come here to have this experience. And it's a little bit of a gamble because we know that we're going to go behind this veil and we're not going to remember who we are. And then we all enter into this experience where we start to even identify as our experience. So we choose these experiences to learn through, and at this risk of becoming identified as these experiences and traumas and our history. And that's the process of learning, is learning that that's not in fact who we are. It's something that we came here to learn through and to experience specifically.
Yes.
But that only happens in this moment. And so processing and dealing with and meeting what comes up in this moment is how we learn and progress and are able to expand this present moment awareness and crawl into and sit in this now, because the things that have happened before have been assimilated. I've had a lot of conversations recently about having a terrible memory because I don't remember very many things, especially just even kind of my short-term memory, but it hasn't bothered me. In fact, I've kind of seen it as a good sign, really, because I'm just not attached to or identifying as anything really in the past. And I mean, literally almost anything. So, I mean, this could be something as mundane as what I had for breakfast, because if what I had for breakfast is what I always have for breakfast, and I'm the one that always has 2 eggs and toast, et cetera, and it's like clockwork, et cetera, then it becomes a sort of identity, right? And if you find yourself perhaps claiming to people that you're always the one that eats this kind of breakfast, that's not a whole lot different than I'm the one who experienced this thing in my childhood, or I'm the one who had this really terrible thing happen to them, and you're carrying that around. And that attachment, the non-processing, the non-learning of whatever that is carving you out of this present moment. And so if you're even needing to claim yourself an identity around your diet or your hobbies or the things that you do, because you're seeking to be known, and that's happening in this moment where really the truth of you is seeking to just be. And the act of being, the act of being is just incredibly comfortable. But when you're being, it's very difficult or not natural at all to be drawn to and collecting past experiences and needing to relive them, nor being anxious about things that are happening in the future. How is your present moment awareness developed since you opened up around in 2012. Did that change? Did you find before then that you were a little bit more what we would say typical, or how has your experience with present moment awareness unfolded?
My identity was being a wife and a mom, and I didn't know who I was. And so when I had the memories, it explained, just in the short time that I went to counseling, that I okay, that helps now, that makes sense now, that puts pieces of my puzzle together. And then I left. I literally told her, I go, look, I can't change the past. I don't know what, anything that will change what happened. I cannot do anything, but what I can do is go forward. And I told her, I said these words where I said, I have to go find myself because I don't know who I am. And I got in my car, I was bawling, and I just told myself, and I told the universe, I said, no matter what, I don't care what happens, I want to know who I am, and I want to love myself, because I didn't even know what my favorite color was when people would ask me, what's your favorite color? And in my mind, I would just start rattling, going, I don't know, but I'm calm on the outside. They don't know I'm going, what is the matter with you? What the F? Like, just pick a color. And I couldn't even do that. And I would be like, I don't know, but they didn't know the turmoil. Just that one question would trigger me because I couldn't decide what my favorite color was. And then I realized I like them all. That's who I am. It's not just even the rainbow. I love whatever color is my favorite color that I'm wearing. Now I realize I kind of, tend towards the blues and the teals. So I recognize that it's just something I, tend to buy those colors or pick that color. And that'll probably change as well. Okay. But when you start really learning who you are and loving yourself, which I think is one of our biggest challenges, at that time I was 7 sizes bigger. I was in a really, negative relationship, and he was narcissistic. So I remember having to figure out what that was to get to that place. Well, when one person starts down that path and the other one wants to stay negative, there's a choice coming up. And so I realized, okay, I can't stay with that person anymore. And so then I went on my journey, and I can't remember. I think it was Louise Hay and then Bob Proctor. I heard a video from Bob Proctor, and he kind of expounded on what Louise Hay had said was, look yourself in the mirror and tell yourself you love yourself. And so I was doing that, which was really hard at that time. That was a huge challenge for me. Well, Bob Proctor, I hear this literally about 2 weeks after, and he goes, now the challenge is, it's like he knew that she had said this. He goes, I want you to be fully undressed, and you get close into the mirror and you look into each eye and say it here, I love you. Say it here, I love you. Train, tell yourself, believe it. And he kept saying that. Oh my gosh. It took me like probably 2 weeks before, as soon as I would stand there and I would just start bawling. And then finally, I told myself, Andrea, you're going to do this. You're going to do this. And then all of a sudden, it's like magic happened, and the weight just started disappearing. And even people at work were like, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm being happy. And they're like, that's it? I'm going, yeah, it's about me. Finally, it's about like me. I didn't know who me was, and now me love me self. It was just like everything was me. And it wasn't in a selfish way. It was, I felt like a kid. I felt like I kind of got to have this experience that I never had before. And that was, life is, as kids look at it, everything is great, until we tell them it's not. Everything is great. And so I have never stopped looking and viewing the world that way, because I love it. Why should we change? Even in the if we have day jobs, still it's, I mean, I have my moments because people challenge me. And yet I'm like, I love you. That's what I just start sending them love vibes. I'm like, I just love you. And whoever, I mean, I think when I'm in the moment, I'm like you, I don't remember. I forget the days, let alone time. If, it's really, I feel like I'm already always in the ethers in a sense, but it's just me being in my own space. And, that whole putting that out there, that love vibe, I feel like wherever you go, from the grocery store, everybody is always about the people. So I just feel like I keep this going around me, and I, wherever we're at, and loving people, and they feel it, they know this. And so whoever you're with, the service you get, the people who check you out, whether they're having a good day or not, right? We're changing the world one person at a time. And that's what that's what I'm here to do. I'm here to help change the world. And I try to do it with one person, and that person is always the one that's in front of me.
Oh, I love that. I love that. And that's such a perfect note to end this hour on, because as the person that's sitting in front of you, I love the fact that we have a shared purpose there. And
Yeah.
indeed, we have an opportunity to light the world up one person at a time. I really appreciate the time this evening, Andrea, and I look forward to doing it again.
Yep, we will do this again for sure. And thank you for hosting and figuring out all that technical stuff, because I get out here and I'm oblivious to all that. So I couldn't even focus on YouTube or Facebook. So I apologize if you guys ask questions, but I didn't want the Zoom link to go out too soon. So we'll have to figure out a little bit better way if you guys want to ask questions. So yeah.
And we will.
Yeah, we will. Bye.